What is going on, RP fam? It's Tuesday, so I have my Week 14 in review. I'm going to go over every single game from Thursday to Sunday last week. Try to give you guys the most useful and pertinent information that we found out from each game and how that rolls into a critical fantasy playoff week moving forward. There is not a more important time than right now to get every bit of information you possibly can to help you make informed decisions. Every single move that you make in your lineups could be a make or break one for your entire season. So I'm here to help you do your due diligence to go and get that dub. If you are new to the RP channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are growing fast. Over 500 already. We are now on our way to 1,000 subscribers. If you have not done it yet, you can be a part of that by clicking that button. And if you find yourself enjoying the content, a like on the video means the world and helps continue to help the channel grow. Get it out to people who maybe have not seen it yet. With all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, let's hop into this week's Relentless Rundown. We start with a Thursday night game where the Rams come back and shock the Raiders 17-16. My biggest takeaway and hottest take from this game is that if you have another viable starting option, you have to bench Derek Carr against New England. That is if you were able to survive his Week 14 dud. I know that Carr had been great in 4 out of 5 coming into this matchup with the Rams, but this brutal performance gives me pause to roll with him with my season on the line. If you are in fact depending on him, the very least that you could do is go check what your streaming options might be. The Panthers hold off the Seahawks 30-24, and Carolina's defense showed us once again that they are not just a good play, but they will be an excellent play in Week 15. They've been underappreciated all year long, and they get a great matchup with the Steelers to start the fantasy playoffs. The Bills separate in the division. They win a big one against the Jets 20-12. Biggest takeaway here, guys, do not lose hope on this Bills offense going into the playoffs. They've scored 30 points or more in just 2 out of their last 8 games, which is not ideal. Most of us thought this was the best offense in the league. I think they explode against Miami next week and put our doubts and our fears to rest. That is weather permitting, by the way, because if it's a snowstorm or something crazy in Buffalo, that will change things dramatically. The other thing that we can take away from this game is that Zonovan Knight is a big pickup this week, one of the best that you can possibly add to your rosters. So if he is available, you have to go out and get him. He has an excellent schedule down the stretch, and he is seeing massive volume in this offense. Michael Carter was back this week. He had 5 carries for 5 yards. He is not the dude right now. Do not overlook Bam Knight. The Bengals crushed the Browns 23-10, the next game that I am looking at, and I'm here to tell you guys, the hottest take I can give you from this game is you can, in fact, trust Deshaun Watson next week. He flashed here against a really tough Cincinnati defense. Cleveland is going to have to throw the ball a ton next week against the Ravens. They are not going to be able to run it. Coming into this week, Week 14, the Ravens had given up something like 2.5 yards per carry over their last 3 games. So this is going to be a high volume game for Deshaun Watson. I am putting him in my lineups with the season on the line. This is the push that you were hoping for when you got Watson on your rosters. Hasn't looked great yet, but it will next week. And because of this, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I have been all about over the last month plus, he is going to be a great flex option next week against a terrible Baltimore secondary. He had 114 yards in this game. The next game that I am looking at is the Cowboys-Texans. Dallas is able to survive, pull it out late. Do not chase the points with Chris Moore on this game. I know the stat line was awesome. 11 targets, 10 catches, 124 yards. I am not taking anything away from him, but I am not going to risk him not being able to put up an encore, even in a great matchup with the Chiefs next week. In my opinion, he is better off on the bench / on waivers. The Lions destroy my Vikings. Not a pretty performance from Minnesota. 34-23 is the final. Minnesota's defense is an absolute dumpster fire. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to be able to understand that. However, I am here to tell you, you can play them next week against the Colts. The Vikings are among the league leaders in turnovers forced. The Colts give up top 2 numbers to defenses played against them. So go contrarian here and reap the rewards. The other thing that I think we can take away from this game going into next week for Detroit side is that neither one of these Detroit backs is a great option next week. Probably nothing more than low-end flexes, and that is because this Jets defense that they are facing is legit. I think it stymies Detroit on the ground, so flex if you have to, but be aware of the risks. The next game is the Jags smoking the Titans 36-22. Bit of a surprise, in my opinion. Did not see this one coming, but what we learned, and I've been waiting to be able to say this, Trevor Lawrence is a top 12 play next week, and I've had him there before, but we can go in with confidence. I know that he has struggled in difficult matchups, but I am not going to let that deter me from throwing him in week 15. The Jags are not going to be able to run it much against Dallas. That means a ton of volume for Trevor Lawrence. What we learned from the Titans side in this game is that even though they do not have very many viable pass catchers, showed itself here, Treylon Burks should be back in week 15. If he is healthy, of course, and available, pick him up and play him as a wide receiver 3. Ryan Tannehill did not look great, but Treylon has in every game he has been active. The Giants forget to show up against the Eagles, who fly and win 48-22. And unfortunately, this is not going to make me very popular among the fantasy owners. However, I have to say, my hottest take here is that it is time to panic on Saquon Barkley. Worst case scenario, right as the playoffs hit. It seems that his neck and shoulder injuries that he has been fighting through are clearly bothering him. And just a few weeks ago, Barkley, against the team that he gets in week 15 in Washington, had 23 touches for just 81 total yards. Now, he did score and he saved his day, but that may not be the case here against Washington. Barkley is still going to be in your lineups. I'm certainly not benching him because of his upside. However, the ceiling has shrunk and the floor is not ideal either. The next game that we're going to look at is the Ravens, who hang on late and best the Steelers 16-14. Hottest takeaway is this: with question marks at the quarterback position, both Baltimore backs are going to be startable next week against Atlanta. I am leaning on J.K. Dobbins as my RB1 here because he showed far more ability in the touches that he got, even though it was a pretty close to being a 50-50 split with Gus Edwards. I think both of these guys see double-digit looks. I lean Dobbins. The other thing from the Steelers side, in the backfield, is Najee Harris. He has earned my trust in the fantasy playoffs. Carolina is a decent but not great matchup next week, but more importantly, with their QB situation in a complete flux, the volume is going to be there for Harris. The Chiefs hold off the Broncos 34-28. Patrick Mahomes with a trifecta of picks in this game, but I am looking at the backfield here for my hottest take. It's that Jerick McKinnon is a viable flex option against the Texans. He has 3 touchdowns and 194 total yards of offense over his last 2 games. I will see, most of his damage is done through the air, and the Chiefs may not have to turn to the passing game much against Houston. However, they still could, and the upside in this offense is too good to pass up. Just 2 games left. I'm going to the 49ers against the Bucks first. San Francisco absolutely embarrasses Tampa Bay. The biggest takeaway, though, is that Brock Purdy is worth a start in 2 quarterback leagues. He has plenty of weapons, even without Deebo Samuel. He gets an incredible stretch of games in the fantasy playoffs to finish off the year. There is too much upside for him to be on waivers. Plus, imagine winning a championship with Mr. Irrelevant. That is far too much glory to pass up. From San Francisco's backfield, I'm looking at Jordan Mason. He also needs to be rostered. He averaged over 5 yards per carry. He had 11 of them against the Bucs, and San Francisco is going to lean more heavily on the running game to try to keep the rookie signal caller protected. On Sunday night, in a huge game, the Chargers are able to rebound after an embarrassing loss last week. They beat the Dolphins 23-17. Some red flags for Miami's offense for the first time in what seems like forever. I know they weren't great against San Francisco, but you kind of expected it from that defense. You did not expect it against the Chargers here, but I am here to tell you, Tua is going to be just fine. Do not let this blip on the radar worry you. He's going to bounce back with a big game against the Bills next week. There are massive implications for the playoffs for them as well on the line. I think he steps up in a big way. And I would say ditto to Jalen Waddle. He has battled injuries and he's also dropped duds in back-to-back weeks. But these are two guys who got you to this point. Do not move away from them now. My final take is from LA's side. It's more of an apology. I was wrong about Mike Williams. Okay, my bad. I own it. I did not have him in my top 25. A couple people asked about him. I said to shy away. I was very nervous after what we saw the last time that he came back from an injury, played a quarter maybe, and then left. So Mike Williams with a big game. He's going to be a top 15 play against one of the worst secondaries in the league next week. You can start him with confidence from here on out. And that'll do it for today's review. Hope you can use this information to go out and get a big dub as the fantasy playoffs are here. Crush the like button if you enjoyed the content, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Relentless Press has content Monday to Saturday. I'm dropping over 10 videos every single week. So by subscribing, you ensure that you do not miss a thing, because we do not want you to be underprepared when it matters most. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abriam Opats, and I will see you next time.